This makeup look is great for interviews to look put together but not overdone, but it also works great for passport or work IDs if you want to look very natural. Maybe you typically don't wear a lot of makeup, but you want to look nice in your ID or your passport photo. Well, this one is for you. I'm going to break it down step by step, but as always, if you are ever struggling, I am here to help, so let me know. But let's get started with this look. Skin prep is so important. Moisturize your skin and leave it settle on the skin before you continue. But if you ever feel like your foundation never looks quite right, try adding in a primer. There are primers out there for every skin issue that you might have, from the application to the finish. There's a primer that will help. I would recommend practicing using your moisturizer and your primer to make sure that they work well together. But definitely let me know if you need any suggestions on the right primer for you, because I'm sure that we can find one. So I'm going to start with concealer, and I don't always start with concealer, but I know what I want to cover and brighten already. Usually I would do my foundation and then my concealer, but for a very natural finish, I do my covering with my concealer and then I do my foundation, which I'll explain why in the next step. But let's just talk about concealing. You want to apply concealer to the main points, not the entire area. And you don't have to follow the same pattern that I am using. For instance, you see those 3 points I've done underneath my eyes? That's because that's where I need the coverage. What I like to do is focus on the main points and then blend and blur out the edges. I'm also working up underneath my lashes, and what I like to do is look upwards to get really, really close. Now there's a million ways that you can apply concealer using a brush, a sponge, etc. And if you want a video on that, definitely let me know. But I do like to tap in the product with my fingertips. This is just great for working around the eyes. And because I'm looking upwards, I'm getting really close, but it also means I don't have to look in the mirror. And I know for my viewers who wear glasses and need them to apply, using their fingertips is a great way to feel for the placement. That way they don't have to rely on taking their glasses on and off. Because actually taking your glasses on and off can give you headaches, it can make you feel kind of seasick. So it's great to practice using your fingertips to learn how the product works. It's actually why we teach kids to use finger paints before we actually put a paintbrush in their hand. But that's a story for another day. So I also have a little blemish to conceal, and I know it's only little. I kind of wish it was bigger so I could really show you how to cover them, but I want to show you how we're going to cover it, but it's still not going to be invisible, and that's okay. Now I've already applied a little concealer just in that general area to brighten, but now I'm going to be applying more of a skin toned concealer, so closer to my skin tone. I'm going to apply it in the middle. And I'm going to give that a second to go from glossy and wet to more matte. And as it starts to go a little bit more matte, I'm going to blend and blur out the edges. So I'm pulling the edges of the concealer outwards, not going right into the middle where I need the most coverage. And as I pull the edges out, I'm then going to use my fingertips to tap those and blur and blend them in. That way I have maximum coverage right in the middle, but it all starts to blur and blend out. Foundation is next. Foundation will cover the concealed areas while also giving us an even tone all over. This is a great way to give you that very natural finish. And you want to make sure that your foundation works well with your neck. If you rarely wear makeup, you want to do this quick little check just to make sure, because your skin is always going to be changing. Now at first when I apply it, it's going to look a little too light, but that's just because it's glossy and wet. As I start to blend it out and it starts to set, you can see how the color changes. Now it's going to be a little darker on my face, but it matches my neck. And that's just simply because I don't tan my face, but I do tan my neck. So this is a pretty good match, but I always like to be a little lighter on the face compared to the neck. Your face can really be like half a shade lighter than your neck, because otherwise if it's too dark, it's going to throw off your facial features. It's actually how makeup artists in movies and on TV shows do the evil stepsister kind of look. They basically lighten the neck compared to the face, and this just throws off the face proportions. It's kind of like putting the wrong frame on a painting. However, for flash photography, the flash can brighten up the face but darken the neck. So you just want to make sure you're getting as close as possible if this is for your passport. And I'm just blending this in with a brush. Again, there's so many different ways that you can apply foundation. But once I start to work this foundation in and there's less and less product on the brush, I'm then going to bring it up around my hairline, ears, down my neck. I'm not picking up any extra product. I'm just blending what's already there. And doing this little tapping motion with a pretty clean brush is just a great way to make sure everything's even, everything's blended, and everything's going to look nice and natural, while also giving us great coverage. I like to spray with a setting spray if I'm happy with how my face makeup is looking. This will also help with your blush, bronzer, and highlight application. If you feel like your blush doesn't look even, this will actually help because it'll seal everything in place, set your foundation, your concealer, so then the next layers are going to glide evenly. But we need to let this set first, so let's move on to the brows. For a natural look, I like using a tinted brow gel first. A clear brow gel is great. It's great for shaping, but a tinted one will coat the individual hairs and just give you a little bit more structure, which is also great for flash photography because the flash breaks down the pigment, so a tint will actually help with that. It also looks really natural in real life, so if this is for work or an interview, try using a tinted gel. I'm also going to be using an eyebrow powder. This is going to go over the gel and add a little bit more depth to the brows, particularly for photographs. But what do I always say? Brows are personal, so you do you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Now, I like to bring my brows a little closer together because they always look really far apart when I take photos in those photo booths. I think it's the depth of the lens. It always makes my nose and between my brows look a lot wider than it is. So by bringing my brows slightly closer together, I create a smaller nose and I look a little bit more like myself in the photographs. I then focus most of the depth from the outer edge, so from the arch outwards. This is where I want it to be nice and sharp, a little deeper, but then from the arch inwards, I like it to be soft and kind of blurry. But I never like to tell anybody what to do with their brows, so you do you. The eyes are next, and you don't need to be wearing eyeshadow to look professional. It does add a little bit more balance to your face though. So I like to prime my lids using something slightly tinted. This is just going to cover any natural discoloration that you might have on your lid, and we all have a little bit. And if you are planning on wearing eyeshadows, an eyeshadow primer will help them glide on and stay on for you. For a professional look or a photograph, I would recommend using shades that are already found in your skin. So all of these tones and shades from light to dark are all found on my skin already. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I do have a lot of very detailed eye makeup tutorials that you can watch. But what I'm going to do is brighten the lid. I'm going to shape around the hood using a medium shade that's just going to add some depth and recede and push back that hood. And this is probably the most important step because it adds that shape and that structure to the eyes. But then I'm also going to be adding a slightly deeper brown on the outer third. That's just going to add even more depth and bring the eyes out a little bit more. This just really helps to make sure in photographs your eyes aren't going to get lost. It just adds a little bit more shape. Most importantly, I like to build up my lashes with lots of mascara above and below. Now you can add some fake lashes, but for passport photos, you want to make sure they're not too heavy. Try those natural ones, the press-on ones that I showed in my last video. They'd work really well because they look very natural. But for today, I'm just going to build up my lashes with lots of mascara. We're going to move back onto the face and I'm going to apply some powder now. This is just going to reduce shine, reduce the look of large pores, but also I'm going to be using a powdered blush, so it's going to help with that step too. I like to look more matte for flash photography, particularly in those booths because the flash adds a lot more light. This just makes sure I have a little bit more control where the light is going to bounce off my skin, particularly because I am very pale. However, I typically wouldn't apply this much powder on a day-to-day. This is more of like if I was like 12 hours in and wanted to top it up, I might apply this much powder, but for flash photography, I'm going to go a little bit more matte than usual. For blush, I want them to match my lips, and I want to go for a very natural finish on my lips and on my cheeks to bring the entire look together. So I'm matching my lipstick and my blush together. And this lipstick pretty much matches my natural lip color, so it's all going to work well together to create that very natural look. So I'm going to start by applying that blush, and I want it to be very natural. So I'm going to keep back and up using about 2 finger lengths away from my nose. This is the placement that works best for me, aiming towards the top of the ears. And then once I use up whatever's left over on the brush, I then just sweep it back and forth to blend and blur all around the edges. Now this placement works for a lot of face shapes, but if you are not sure where to place your blush, definitely let me know. For the lips, I like to line with a slightly darker lip liner. I'm not a fan of matching lip liners to the lipstick. I always think they should be a little deeper and more dull. For instance, if I'm wearing pink, I will frame it with a pinky brown. Otherwise, it can kind of look like I just had a bowl of spaghetti. That's why I'm always surprised when these lip kits come with like a matching lipstick and lip liner that are exactly the same, but because lip liners and lipsticks are different texture, it doesn't quite translate. I personally think they should just be a little darker and a little duller. And then I'm going to fill in the lips with that matching lipstick to the blush. And this is just going to create a very natural look because it works with my own complexion and my skin tone. And I would recommend using a brush to apply your lipstick because you'd be surprised at the difference a brush makes versus straight from the tube. And there you go. A smart, professional, still looking like yourself, but just a little bit more polished. But remember, you do you. Makeup shouldn't be a must or a need. When it comes to looking professional, I like to just think of it like ironing your shirt. Yeah, you can wear your blouse or your shirt how it is, but if you iron it, it just looks a little bit more put together and you feel a little bit more confident. And I feel like that's what makeup should be. It shouldn't be a need. It should just be something that makes you feel good. I really hope that you enjoyed this look. If this is for an interview that you're going to, I wish you the best of luck. If it's for your passport, I know you're going to look great. And as always, my friends, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I hope you have a great day. And I'll see you in the next one.